Good day, teachers. Good day, classmates. Today, with my fellow group mates Mark, Giselle, Justin, Kurt, Bryce, and I, Jana, from Group A, will present our research presentation titled Internet and Psychological Sustainability Online Education Reliability. With this, I would like to say a few things in today's presentation. We are going to set forth the significance of this study, particularly the internet mobility, consumer standard, and consumer reliability, as well as the summary of the findings, data from the analysis will be discussed. The research recommendations on the internet and psychological sustainability will be alluded to in the later part of the lecture. Next.
Internet and Psychological Sustainability Online Education Reliability. Next slide. Synopsis of chapters 1, 2, and 3 is how the group organized the factors and surveys of the issue presented. Chapters 1 introduces the objective and the issue, which is internet instability and psychological impacts. Chapter 2 gives examples and relative literature that may be useful for this research. It is significant to have basis on the other studies to further prove the need and the plausibility of the relationship. Finally, Chapter 3 gives the organization on how the group survey worked to its respondents. The purpose of the first three chapters is to have an objective and framework on how to do this descriptive correlational survey and identify its key factors. Next, next slide, please. Chapter 4, Presentations of Results, Data Interpretation, Analysis, and Presentation. Next slide.
Significant factors to discuss. The first one will be internet mobility. This factor will talk about how the internet connection is effective and reliable in accessing the network. The second one is consumer standard. It refers about the students' responses about their internet provider's quality and sustainable connection. Lastly, the consumer reliability. This factor will discuss about the correlation between the said variables with the respondents' reliability towards their internet server providers. Next slide, please.
Significance of the study 1. Internet mobility. So, what does it mean when we say internet mobility? Internet mobility is the way of measuring whether an internet provider service is sufficient to provide a good service, such as providing a stable internet connection that anyone can use. Especially since we're still in a pandemic phase, more and more people are venturing into an online force. They are used currently in education, work, business, etc. And knowing that even more people will use them as we go on with our daily lives. The significance in measuring the students' internet mobility gives the researchers insights into the possibilities of managing and reacting rather to the learner's psychological state. As you can see on the right side of the presentation, most of the students are not satisfied with their internet provider service. Out of 243 respondents, 181 said they experience frequent internet outrages or slow connection with their provider. Now, let's go on to the second significance of the study.
Okay, sorry. Significance of the study 2, consumer standard. To measure consumer standards, the group needs to identify the experiences of each respondent. Every person has a different perspectives with their current internet provider, and it is encouraged to have varying degrees to have, although generalized, a diverse population. This section is one of the significant variables to identify the root cause of negative psychological effects. Next slide. So here's the table 2 of the consumer standard. This table represents the questions that are needed to be answered to create a population image of the consumer standard. Every question is different, yet it has a significant value with each other. It is simple as it is used a Likert scale up to 4, from 1 to strongly disagree to 4 to 4 strongly agree rather. Do you agree the internet connection is considered as an essential? And do you agree that you have a sense of dependency with internal connection? Those two are the examples of this table 2 and its values. Next slide, please.
Consumer mental and social routines. The sole purpose of this section is to identify how students cope up with their schedule during internet interruptions throughout the school year. The third factor that we need to account will describe how students manage their personal and academic life amidst online learning despite the drawbacks caused by network problems. In this section, it is important to determine how students balance their academic and health routines in order to correlate how internet instability can affect a student's mind. Next, please. The table presented shows the data the group needs to obtain the diverse perspective and experiences throughout the school year 2020-2021. Although it varies on each student's capacity to cope up with stress, every response is significant to gather the common perspective on the selected population.
Presentations of results, summary of findings, conclusions, recommendations. Next.
Summary of findings. This chapter summarizes the findings of the study. The primary goal of the study is to determine the learner's experience with online learning during the pandemic. The study sought out to yield results through a survey, and the following slides then talk about the results and recommendations of the study for future references. Next slide, please.
Conclusion. This paper investigates the situation of the students during online classes and how they cope with internet instability and their mental health. The results indicated that majority of Ateneo de Davao senior high school students have experienced bad internet connection, especially during class hours. The data concludes that even though students has different internet provider, they aren't able to provide satisfactory results for the consumers, causing poor internet service and network interruption. The students have to rely on what is available resources to cope with online class. The data showed results that out of 243 respondents, 107 said that they are having a bad sleeping schedule, which will cause bad academic performance. In conclusion, it, if students do not have access to reliable internet service, they will not be able to perform well academically. Next slide, please.
Recommendations. In order to address the consumer's needs and demands for quality internet connection, the researchers has noted the following agendas. First, an increase in government funds meant for the upgrade of our internet service speed and accommodation. It is to ensure that our internet service is able to keep up with international standards and deliver stable and quality service to its subscribers. Second, is the construction of more cell sites. The expansion of cell sites is to guarantee that there is nationwide service and there are no dead spots, especially in rural areas. Third, a thorough shakedown of LGU corruption in cell site permits. It aims to tackle the corruption that happens with cell site permits issuance so that places that need immediate service are offered permits immediately and acted upon. Lastly is the explanation of the digital divide. It is an information drive meant for parents and homeowners about the cell sites and its effects on health, which shines the lights on the facts and encourages the building of cell sites in residential areas. That's all.
This is Group A. Thank you for listening. Do you have any questions and clarifications?